uplifting for Portland.
KKWA HD1, West Lynn, Portland. KFBW HD2 Vancouver, our 96.3 Way FM.
Uplifting Way FM. Community Connect is a public service presentation of Way FM. Join us each week at this time as we engage in topics of conversation affecting our communities.
Welcome to Community Connect on Portland's Uplifting 96.3 Way FM. I'm Ryan Trotter, and on today's show, I've got Ron Gladden. He's the director for Ourganda. And when you think about Ourganda, you might scratch your head a little bit. Okay, so what is? I've heard of the country Uganda, but what's Ourganda? What do you tell people when they ask that?
Yeah, good question, Ryan. The country obviously is Uganda, but we don't consider it you. We consider it our. These are our brothers and sisters, our friends, and so we've named our ministry Ourganda.
Love it. So tell us about what is Ourganda specifically? What do you guys do? What's your ministry and all that?
Well, we transform misery zones into flourishing zones. So we're going into the part of Uganda that is largely forgotten. It's tucked behind the mountains, the only district that had no road until 2014. Now it's starting to rise up a little bit. But if you were to walk into one of the villages where our teams serve all the time, you would think you walked into 120 years after Christ. There is no hint of any civilization. They have nothing. You see a tin roof once in a while, but other than that, every house is a mud and sticks house. There's ultra poverty. There's a lot of unnecessary death. There's a lot of family violence. It's a really tough place.
So how did Ourganda come about? When did you guys start making the inroads? You talk about roads there, but when did you guys start getting your ministry into Uganda?
We started in January of 2018. We bought a four-wheel drive vehicle in Japan online, had it shipped across the ocean. We watched on the website where it was traveling. And ended up in Kenya, and they drove it over to Uganda. And I went over with a friend in January of 18, took delivery of the van, hired our first 4 medical workers to operate a mobile clinic. We decided to take mobile medical help into villages where people had no chance to get out to a hospital or a clinic. They'd never seen a doctor. So our model is mobile. So we started with the medical work, and in 2018, we ended up adding a lot more workers. We now have 13 full-time workers. We operate 2 mobile clinics. And then about a year and a half ago, we decided that we didn't want to just make people healthy and then send them to ultra poverty, where they have no toilet paper. They have no chance of sending their kids to school. Kids don't have shoes. I mean, it's just ultra poverty. So we hired a full-time worker who had a degree in microbusiness, and we've equipped him to help them start micro businesses so they can begin to lift themselves out of poverty. And then last year, we hired a full-time worker to help prevent domestic violence, because that's been a terrible problem for 1,000 years. Over there, polygamy is legal in the country of Uganda, and men buy their wives. They call it a dowry, but they negotiate with the family and they pay X amount for a wife, and so they bought their wife so they think they own them. So we have this triple cycle, we call it 1,000-year triple cycle of premature death, ultra poverty, and family violence. And what we're doing is breaking all 3 of those with the health ministry we do, with the domestic violence ministry we do, and with the empowerment or microbusiness that we do.
If you're dealing with people that have been thinking one way, been living one way, how do you bring them up to now live? We're talking about a ministry, we'll talk more about the spiritual aspect coming up, but how do you take that, how do you change that, how do you break that cycle? What's kind of the plan of attack that you guys have?
Well, a key part of that is the team we hired. And we have a gentleman whose name is Vincent. He grew up in one of those villages as a barefoot little boy. When he was young, he was eating and swallowed a fish bone. It caught in his throat. He couldn't get it out. He was choking, thought he was dying. His parents couldn't help him. There's no hospital within 45 minutes. They carried him on their backs to a hospital. They couldn't get it out and literally thought he was dying. And he cried out to God. And he said, if you save my life, I'll become a doctor. I'll go back to my village and I'll help them with whatever they need, with their medical needs. and the bone miraculously came out. And he ordered his entire life then around becoming a doctor. So he ended up becoming what's called a medical clinical officer, which is just about a doctor there. They can do surgeries and prescribe. But then he had no job. And so he went back to his village and tried to counsel people and so on. But then here came Ourganda in January of 18. Someone recommended Vincent, and we hired him. And now every week he's leading our team that goes into his village and 7 others. But he goes into his village and takes medical care. So he's really the one that everything has kind of been built on is his experience and his love for God and his medical knowledge and so on. And once they see a happy family model, they want that. Once they see a little prosperity, they say, how did you get there? Once they see someone healthy, they say, what do I need to do? So
we're talking with Ron Gladden. He's the director for Ourganda on Community Connect here on 96.3 Way FM. Ourganda serving the people of Uganda. Ron, let's get to, a lot of great organizations out there providing clean water and some other services that are dire, certainly needed in Uganda and other countries around the world. But speaking specifically of Uganda, how is Ourganda different, or how are you guys working in a way that you know what I'm saying? Like how are you guys different?
Well, that's a great question. Everything that's being done by every nonprofit is wonderful and is sorely needed. And so, we've worked with organizations that provide shoes, and then we've learned from organizations that get water, and then there's schools that do education, and then there's hygiene kits and Christian evangelism and birthing kits and nutrition, and on it goes. And all those are so needed, and we do them all. I mean, we've gotten thousands of pairs of shoes for kids, and every woman needs a birthing kit, because in this part of Uganda, if a woman is in labor and gets to the government hospital, they won't take her, they won't admit her unless she comes with her own birthing kit.
Wow.
And so where's she going to get that? She has to come with her own gauze and razor blade and rubber gloves and a blanket and so on. And literally they won't, because they don't have anything. So we get all that too. But we're looking at the big picture. While we're doing all that, we are determined with God's help to break the triple cycle of premature death, ultra poverty, and family violence. So we have teams doing all of that. We've got miracle stories. We've got so many wonderful evidences of God's leading, and we're on the road. And so that's what we do differently. Is we're doing what others are not even trying to do. They're doing one little thing. We're trying to change the DNA that's been there for 1,000 years. I mean, here's the reality. Every little girl in our villages, whenever I go twice a year, and I see a little girl here, and she grows up knowing that she's going to be sold to an older man, probably as his 3rd or 4th wife, and she's going to be condemned to a miserable struggle to survive. Every little girl knows that. Every little boy knows that there's no hope in that village. So he longs for the day when he's old enough to get out of Dodge, to escape, and go to the big city and try to get a job. No one is thinking about, hey, let's make our village better. And so that's what we're doing, is we're infecting them with this notion that if we work together, there is a pathway to make the village a place where the majority say, I feel healthy, happy, safe, and hopeful.
So let me ask you this then, on that, when you talk about that every girl knows that they're going to be sold, how do you break that? You're coming from the outside, right? I mean, how do you break that? I mean, we want it broken. Obviously, that's not the right model. But how do you get them to buy into that, to realize that that's not the way to do it?
There are laws against misuse of women and children, but no one enforces them. And, for example, on our website, we have a 4-minute video that tells what we do. And part of the story there is our medical team rolled into the village one day with preparing to do medical classes and treatment. And someone says, you have to see this woman. Come see this woman. So they went to see, and they found a woman whose husband had driven a spike, 7 or 8 inch spike, into his wife's head with a hammer to kill her. Somehow she was still alive. And so our team tried to get her away from the village to a surgeon who could save her life, and the village elders said, whatever her husband did, he had a right to do. Leave her alone. They went to the police, and the police said nothing we can do about it. So here's the reality. And the woman died, unfortunately. And so here's the reality is there are laws against that nonsense, but no one enforces them. And see, the police there are poor as everybody else. So they don't have a car. They don't have a motorcycle. So they're sitting in some office or standing by the road with a little stick waving at vehicles when they want to talk to a driver or something. And if they get a phone call saying someone's abused someone, they can't even get out there. So one of the things we're doing now is we've partnered with the government, and whenever there's a case like that, we pay for the police to go out there and confront them. So we can break that. They really don't like it the way it is, but no one has ever said, here's what you do about it.
Wow. Talking with Ron Gladden, he's the director for the organization Ourganda here on Community Connect on Portland's Uplifting 96.3 Way FM. Ron, so this what you guys do, you can't do it for free. You rely on people to help you out. How can somebody be a part of helping you out, whether that's monetarily, volunteering time? What are some ways someone that feels that need, feels that call from just our conversation here to help out the organization Ourganda? How can they help out?
Well, we pray every day for three things. First, wisdom, and of course that comes from God. Second, we pray for allies, people who really care about these people. And I can't even express how much we care about them. And when people get to know what things are really like, oftentimes their heart is touched and they say, what can I do to help? And that could be to volunteer on a committee, go on a mission trip with us. We take a mission trip every summer, and I've taken over 200 people. They've all come back alive and happy, and and their lives are changed. And then some people serve on our committees, a domestic violence committee, or medical committee, or building committee, and our marketing committee. I mean, there's all kinds of things. And then, of course, the third thing we pray for is resources. So we stretch what we can. All of our workers on this side of the ocean at this point in our ministry are volunteers, which means we can send all of our money to Uganda. So when someone says, I want to help with domestic violence, and they give $1,000, every penny goes there. So those are some options.
Where can they find out more? You'd mentioned a 4-minute video. What's the website, and where do they find that?
Ourganda.org. Ourganda, Ourganda.org.
.org. So that's a simple way to go. One of the things that I want to ask you about too is all of these are great, and some of these things can be done without God in one sense. That there's just resource, money and that sort of thing. Tell me about the spiritual aspect of Ourganda. How you guys reach them, not only to help their immediate need and get that break in the cycle and all that, but the spiritual side of it. Let's talk about that here in the last couple minutes.
Yeah, everything we do is based upon our love for God and His love for us and everyone else. We see them as our brothers and sisters. They're part of our family. We get a picture of someone with some horrible medical condition and our team can't deal with it. We pay for them to have surgery. We're pretty young, but we've had 39 life-saving surgeries so far of people that would have died without our intervention. And we're able to do that because of our donors. But we deeply care about them, and so we pray for them constantly. When our team goes to the village every morning, we have two different teams that go to two different villages every day. They start with a devotional and prayer, and they put things in a spiritual context. They let people know, if you want prayer, if you want Bible instruction, or if you want a Bible, let us know. Then we also get audio Bibles, and most of the people there haven't read. They've never been to a school. They don't know how to read, and so we get audio Bibles in their language, solar powered. All they do is push a button and they hear the gospel in their own language, and you ought to see their faces light up when they hit that button and they start hearing the Bible stories for themselves. So everything we do is based upon that. We don't push a certain denomination. We call ourselves Methodiscobabitarian. We're just Christian people who want to help anyone that needs our help, and we don't care if they're Christians. That's great. If they're Muslim, if they're atheists, or they're not sure what they are, if they have a need, they are welcome to be part of the Ourganda ministry and part of the Ourganda family.
Real quick, too, you guys have a campus over there. Tell me about where that's at right now.
Yeah, we're building a new campus. We bought 3.5 acres. We're building a whole facility, a community center, where we'll have our headquarters and our storage for our vehicles and so on. But the primary purpose is to invite the community to come and learn how to live a life of flourishing. So we have a soccer field for young people. We have a big auditorium where we're going to invite people to learn how to study the Bible, how to start a business, how to have a happy family, how to live more healthfully, and so on. So it's under construction right now. 72 people are working on it day and night for 9 months. It'll be done in September of this year, and we can't wait for a grand opening and start inviting them to come for class.
And you can see more about that at ourganda.org. So Ourganda.
Got it.
.org.
Yep.
He's Ron Gladden. He's the director for Ourganda, serving Uganda, but it's Ourganda. That's how it's the organization. Ron, appreciate you coming on and telling us about this. We're certainly praying for you. And if you want to support the ministry, find out more at ourganda.org. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Ryan.
You've been listening to Community Connect with Way FM. Join us in more conversations each week at this time on Way FM.